Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today for Tuesday Conversations. This is our first um, in a long line of conversations that we're going to have on Tuesdays. We're going to be talking about some things that maybe you don't agree with, but we want to have this conversation. I have long told my church, Pastor Eric, I'm from Real Life Church. I've long told my churches that often I believe that as Christians, sometimes we have bullhorns and we're just talking to people, but we're not listening. And I want to have just conversations on Tuesday, maybe not every Tuesday, but I want to have conversations with people. Maybe I don't agree with them, maybe you don't agree with them, but I believe that we should have this conversation and learn from each other. All right. So tonight, I want to talk about a misconception that we have in the Black community concerning COVID-19. We know that death is all around us, and I believe a lot of time people are they're not vaccinated, or they don't really know what is going on. So tonight I have my special guest here tonight, um, a good friend of mine. We go a long way back, and I'll let him talk more about his credentials as he comes up. But I'm going to be talking about Pastor Xavier Jones. He's going to be here with us tonight. So let's welcome Pastor Xavier Jones. Hey, welcome, Pastor Jones.
Hey, Pastor Eric, it's so good to be on tonight. I'm excited about what God is doing through your life and doing through Real Life Church. And I'm confident that these Tuesday night conversations are going to be very informative and enlightening.
Right. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came on this COVID journey. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
So the hardest thing for me to do is to really talk about myself. So you asked me to do something real hard. I've been in the medical field or medical professional, been a medical professional for the past 16 years, serving in capacity of emergency medicine um, via being a paramedic for the past 16 years that I've been there. COVID-19, obviously, want to speak from a practical standpoint, spiritual standpoint as well, I think is very important. So God spoke to
Correct.
me around December and said that there would be an outbreak, and you could probably find the recordings, that there would be an outbreak of a disease that does not have any name that would go rampant around the world.
Wow.
At that stage, it kind of dawned on me. I didn't understand it, but it was, I told it to my church and it was like crazy because they're looking at me like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just saying what God said. But anyway, we fast forward to March of 2020. I was sitting in my office one day and I just began to get
Mm,
very tired. And while I got tired, I just thought I was just whatever. So I went home. This is at the height of how scary COVID was, where people were dying. You've seen videos of people going from Wuhan, China, where they were going into people's homes, pulling them out. They were in cars and they were pulling them out. It's such a scary thing. And
right.
at that point, I believe there was like the first few cases that had gone out um, across America, and I started just feeling tired. And then later on, started having this burning sensation in my nose. And not only the burning sensation in my nose, but then I also had uh, loss of taste, loss of smell, but I didn't lose my appetite. So I didn't think nothing of it until one of my friends is like, I lost my taste, I lost my smell. And
Wow.
that's when I'm like, yeah, I lost my taste and lost my smell too. One of my friends was happening to be doing one of the surveillance tests that they were trying out to see how to detect if someone had COVID, the antibody testing. He gave me the tests. I did the tests, and he looked at me and he said, you need to go see your doctor. So this is
Mm,
after I had already gone to the hospital, and the hospital told me that it was a sinus infection. I had never had any sinus conditions or anything at all, but that was what they said. No, this is not COVID. So anyway, I went to another testing site and I found out that I was actually diagnosed with COVID-19. So for the first 4 days, it was pretty critical. First 4 days, I lost my taste, lost my smell, felt very bad, weak, lethargic, but was getting around. Um,
okay.
I could remember missing church that Sunday, and I'm looking at videos, and I'm like, oh my God, I am so sick. I can't even clap my hands. I'm so sick. I can't even lift my voice. I'm so sick. I can't even hit like on this video. I just turned the video off. That's how bad I felt.
Wow.
So by the time I realized that it was COVID, I was already feeling better at that point. So basically, during that time, it became a point of where I said, you know what, because of my profession, I needed to be learned in this subject. I needed to have the wisdom related to this subject. I need to know, how do you manage this? What do people present like with this? And after being diagnosed with that, it really sent me out to really realize that, hey, this is closer than I thought it was. It was not a person that looked like they had COVID. It was not a place that I went to that I felt like COVID was present. So I say that to say that, a lot of times the misconceptions happen because we think that COVID has a look, COVID has a name, COVID has a nationality. This is during a time that they were saying on social media that African Americans could not even get COVID.
Wow.
So that was like crazy to me. And then someone actually put up on social media saying, if you get COVID, you're going to die. And although I believe that there's a place to talk about the seriousness of it, there's also a factor where people try to ensue and put fear into people that should not have been, because sometimes fear, what it does is it disables people and keep them from making sound decisions. So that is a little bit about how I began this journey. Obviously, probably somewhere around January or December. So since January 26, 2020, this is something that I've been studying and watching very closely for several different reasons. And I don't speak on behalf of any other organization other than myself.
Right.
But
put that disclaimer out there.
Yeah, this is definitely has become something that I've had to become the student of to make sure that I can help make the right decisions.
Right. I remember, especially when it came down after you had told me, because we talk a lot, that you had COVID and the vaccine came out, and I remember telling you to say, man, I don't know about getting the vaccine. And, I said, hey, I don't know about this thing. It's rushed, and this, like that. And we had this good conversation. And I think from that conversation, because after you said you studied, that you told me some things about it. And I said, yeah, I think I am going to get it. And my wife was already saying that she's going to get it. I was like, I don't know. But after our conversation, it was like, yeah, I think I need to get the vaccine, because there's, again, fear and misconceptions can mess up a lot of people from getting healthy. That's just the way it is. So let me ask you this. Since you deal with the vaccines and the COVID, what are some misconceptions that you think has stopped the African American community from getting the vaccines? I've heard a lot of them. I've seen it on Facebook. I remember reading just today as I was getting ready for this conversation, and I remember when Hank Aaron, he had got the vaccine, and about a couple of weeks later he died, and all of a sudden people, oh, he died from the vaccine. I mean, the man was older, he had other complications, and he died from natural causes. But the first thing they would have said, oh, he died from the vaccine. They just, do that. And I think, I guess if we want to get real, the African American community can have some hesitant about the government because of some things that happen, with us, as when it comes down to medicine, hospitals, government, because of some things that happened to us. But I don't know. What's your thoughts on it?
So there is some hesitation as it relates to that, and I believe that it's important for us to be informed. So when you talk about that hesitation, you have just the history from the past of the Tuskegee study, where African American men were injected basically with syphilis, and many of them died as a result of it. And a study that was being done during those times. Then you move on to the AIDS and HIV pandemic, where they attempted to say that it was just a gay disease, not realizing that the African American community is actually pushed and actually made victims of this because of lack of knowledge. I think there's always this undertone of many people that feels like that somebody's out to get you, somebody's out
Oh,
to kill you, somebody's out to take you out. And we're in a worldwide pandemic, and literally there are white people dying just as fast as black people. Hispanic people are dying just as fast as black people, and we're literally all in this together. And one of the things that really gave me some comfort in this is the fact that when the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccinations came out, the first thing that people have to understand is that you cannot just put out a medicine, at least from a governmental standpoint, without going through a scientific process. That it has to be vetted. You have to vet it. You have to go through trials where you have people that will be given a placebo. You have people that will be given the real thing, so that it's not people that's making a decision saying that, oh yeah, I'm healed, or I didn't get COVID because I got the vaccination, or whatever. There's multiple layers of trials that has to happen before it ever makes it to you and I. And one of the things that many people say that, COVID vaccination, that, it just was happening so fast. There's no way that should work. And the reality is this: yes, that is correct, but it's incomplete. And it's important for us to know that. Yes, it was correct that they came up with this in 62 days. And the reason why they were able to come up with this in 62 days is because of the amount of people that was being sick and hospitalized from this disease, which gave them more people that they could actually do test trials on before it ever made it to us. So before the announcement was ever made for anyone to receive the vaccination under emergency authorization, 37,000 people had already been given it as a test trial, and it had been proven to be 92 to 95% effective. That's important to know. And you say, well, there were some people that died. Absolutely. And it shows that the risk versus benefit, the benefit outweighed the risk. So 1% of those people that actually took it actually passed away or had a complication. So when you look at this, you say if millions of people are going to die and only 5 millions of people will die from COVID-19, or 5 people will die from a vaccination, the cost, the benefit versus liability analysis on that clearly is that the vaccination is more effective. So it's important for us to see that and follow science. This is not something that we should politicize. This is not something that we should make a political statement. We trust science every flu season. Many of us go and get a flu shot. And if we'd be real honest, it probably takes them somewhere around 15 days to come up with a new flu vaccination. And the reason why is because every year the flu changes its strand. It mutates into something else. Not to minimize COVID and to say that COVID is a flu, but it's changing its dynamic. It's morphing into something else. And if we're not careful, it will morph into something that is beyond what the vaccine can carry. And they'll be back in the lab trying to find another cure for the new variants that will be birthed. So yes, there are hesitations, but it's important for us to not operate in ignorance and ask questions. If I have high blood pressure, I'm not going to social media to ask for answers. If I have hepatitis, I'm not going to social media to ask questions. If I have a cold, I'm not going to certain people asking them how to be healed. The medical professionals the scientists have gotten together. They have proven that this thing works and that the efficacy of this is working at levels that it should. We've got to trust the science. And yes, there's always potentials of something bad going on. But I think when you look at this, the amount of people and the rate that people are dying, the vaccinations is far more safe than it is to not take it.
Wow. That's a good analysis right there. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So what do you say about when people say, well, it changes my DNA? I don't want to take the vaccine because it changes my DNA.
Well, the funny thing I'll say is what's so good about your DNA that somebody want to change it? But but a realistic answer is this vaccination is mRNA, messenger RNA. It's basically what it does is it is almost like a piece of COVID that goes into your body, to train your immune system on how it should respond to it in case it see it. The simplest way that I can put it, and the way that I explained it to my brothers and sisters, and even my father, who is an elderly gentleman, is I explained it like this. There's a crime watch community. Crime watch is your immune system. Crime watch is always up, always looking to tell, always looking to call the police. So what ends up happening is now there's a bolo. Be on the lookout. There's a picture of what the bad guy looks like. The vaccination inserts into you basically what the bad guy looks like. And then it trains your immune system to say, hey, this is what the bad guy looks like. It has a lot of protein. It's spike protein. Now, when you see this guy, I need you to tell and I need you to respond. So your initial immune system, you get an initial immune response, just like you feel when you get a cold. So people say, after I got the vaccine, I felt like I had shivers, or I thought I had arm pain, or I felt like I was coming down with the cold for about 12 hours. That is an immune response, not a side effect. That's your immune system. That's the crime watch system, basically calling all the soldiers saying, listen, there's a bad guy that's close and we got to be ready to fight him. They notify the T cells, which are the deeper part of the immune system. And it basically tells them, listen, remember this guy. So the next time when you get an actual exposure to COVID, when you're with your family at a party and nobody's wearing a mask, or somebody in your office is infected with COVID and you get exposed to it, your immune system automatically responds and say, I've seen this guy before. I recognize this guy before. This is how we handle him. We're going to handle him this way. And that's why you'll notice that although some people will get the infection of COVID after getting the vaccination, it is not as severe because the immune system has the training wheels. It's been there before. It knows and it recognizes how to manage this enemy, so to speak, or this bad guy. So it's important for us to know exactly how it works. So it doesn't go to the level of your DNA. Why would medical professionals want to alter the DNA? And then there's so much other conspiracy that says, people weren't really receiving the real vaccination. They're giving people something else. And I've resolved in this season that if you want valid information, I'm willing to educate you on it, but I'm not interested in having an argument. It's such a serious thing that there's more people that needs the education of this. And we're affected much more disproportionately than any other race because of lack of knowledge and because of lack of access to health, lack of health insurance, and lack of access to health doctors, healthcare, and all of that. Healthcare, what I was trying to say. So it's important for us to understand it. So we're already fighting a losing battle if we come in misconceptions and we don't take or make available to our body what can help get us or keep us safe. So there's many people that would resolve and say, well, I could just take my vitamin C, I could take vitamin Z, I could take zinc, I can do all of that and be holistic. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. But there is something that has been proven by scientists that simply says that it knows how to fight off COVID-19 if you get this vaccination, or train your immune system to fight it off the best way that it can. I'm not sure that we had this much craziness as it became to vaccinations when it came to hepatitis shots and hepatitis B and hepatitis A and all of those hepatitis shots. We didn't have this much fighting. we would send our kids to school, and in order for them to go to school, they had to get a shot. But
Yes,
now
sir.
we're making up a fight saying that, no, we don't want to do this, but we don't want to wear masks either. So it puts us in a space to where it's like, what do you really want to happen? You don't want a shot. You don't want to wear a mask. And you don't want to socially distance. So what do you want? And
You
that's where I
know,
think,
I think that's the question. I mean, what do you want? You know, because I mean, you covered that, and you said when you talked about the holistic thing. I mean, I was just talking to somebody today who said they've been taking zinc, they've been taking vitamins, they've been in this holistic approach for 26 years. They've been doing it for 26 years, and they came down with COVID. They
Mhm.
came down with COVID. So when people say that, you know, that like that is the be all to be all, then and then that. Now I do believe that God, in His infinite wisdom, created us initially for to fight off stuff. That's what I believe.
Mhm.
But I also believe that the stuff that we have put in our body has caused us to decrease that what God wanted us to have. You know, we've eaten, you know, all of these foods and stuff that's in the air and all that. So it causes us. So we need, I think, we need extra help, and that extra help sometimes is in the vaccine.
Right.
I agree with you. I've never seen that, even in the military. I mean, I got some military guys now, man. They tell me, I don't want to take the shot. I want to take it. Look, when I was in the military, I remember taking a six. We had to take 6 shots to try to go to India. We had to take 6 shots. We didn't
My God.
ask what was in it. We didn't ask what was in it. We didn't. We just did it because we know that the country needed us to do something, and in order for that to happen, we just did it. When you go to look, when you go to different countries, when you get on that plane, if you want to go to that country, you know, you got to take certain shots. That's it. And you're not asking, you know, what's in it because you want to go to that country. So you
Right.
know, I really don't know what people want. Um, you know, as far as really what they want, because like you said,
Yeah.
they don't want to wear no mask. They don't want a social distance. They don't want the shot. I mean, and again, you said we as African Americans, we have so many underlying conditions: diabetes, heart pressure. We got all of these things that when that COVID happens to us, it messes us up. What you
Yeah.
got to say
So
about
so yeah, like the scientists, the doctors has already proven on more than one occasion that, you know, the comorbidity or the underlying issues that help you die, so to speak, is when you have high blood pressure and diabetes. These are key areas and things that African Americans suffer with that oftentimes go untreated. You know, I could remember for years watching some of my family members would get a screeching headache. And the first thing they would say is, I'm going in the room, turning off the lights, not knowing that they were having a hypertension crisis. And later
mm,
find out in their life that, hey, I now have an aneurysm. I now have diabetes. I now have kidney failure because of the amount of pressure that was going through their blood vessels, and it was untreated. So it was something that I started on earlier, where we talked about that this was being created within 62 days. The reason why they were also able to create this in 62 days is the technology that we have today is far more aggressive and far more um, advanced than we ever been in the world or in our time. So
mm-hmm.
there's billions of dollars that are invested every year into this, so that when things like this happen, we're able to have a quick response from a governmental standpoint. It would be unwise for us to just not do any research when things aren't going on. So scientists are constantly looking at the human DNA, looking at parts of us and trying to figure out, if this happened, how would we respond? If there's a weapon of mass destruction, how would we respond? If there's a chemical or biological attack, how would we respond? So they've got billions of dollars invested in this. So in order for that to use that, when this broke out, all they did was just grab some of the research they had already previously had. And that's why it made it that much quicker. Now, I want to go one step further. The same material that is used to determine if a woman is pregnant is the same materials and the same scientists that are doing the study on these vaccinations. The same scientists that are changing the high blood pressure medications and congestive heart failure medications are the same scientists that are studying this. The same scientists that are coming up with new AIDS and HIV medications and cancer medications on a continuous basis are the same scientists that are studying COVID-19. So it becomes a question of, we can trust them with the high blood pressure medication, but we can't trust them with the vaccination.
Right. Definitely. Yeah.
To me, that
That's
doesn't
it.
make a lot of sense.
All right. So, I mean, I got a couple of questions here, and we're going to get to those questions before the time out, man. Time is moving, but I want to answer this. This is another misconception, that the government is tracking you when you get the COVID shot. That the government is tracking you. What you say about that?
Listen, if you want to track me on my phone. If you want to track 98% of the people, track them on their phone, track them on social media. They ain't going nowhere without the phone. Most of them are not going anywhere without social media. And the reality is this: where are you going that they need to track you? At least in my context, most of us ain't going nowhere but around the corner to the store. Or down the street to mama house, or daddy house, a cousin poo-poo and nene them house. Why spend that much billions of dollars in the middle of a health crisis to track you down? That don't make much logical sense to me. So no, the vaccine does not track you.
Huh? Yeah,
If you really want to talk about surveillance, if they really wanted to track you, there are satellites all over the world that can count the number of hairs on your head.
Yes,
that
sir.
Certainly they don't have to put a chip in you to track you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
I guess I'm not that deep, so I'm like, to me, it's like, yeah, where am I going?
All right. So, what about this misconception? Both of us are pastors, and I'm pretty sure you heard this one, that it is the mark of the beast that we're getting inside. Putting that is the mark of the beast, and they quote in Revelations. That whole thing about taking the mark of the beast. What do you say about that one?
I will say a person that says that is probably someone that does not read their Bible, and that has hurt someone else that doesn't read their Bible. Because if you look at the scriptures, it clearly says how the mark of the beast would be given. Talks about an imprint on their head. I don't think COVID vaccination provides an imprint on your head. So it don't make much sense. So right. I think sometimes we try to major in the minor. We try to be deeper than necessary, and being deep, we get confused. I'm just a very, call it how you see it kind of guy, straightforward to the point. It's not the Illuminati. It's not the mark of the beast. It's not the devil trying to get in your body. I think we over spiritualize things, and I feel as pastors, we have a mandate that we need to make people aware of this. We need to make sure that people are scripturally sound and understand that this is not the mark of the beast. And Jesus is never going to make you have to choose living and dying. That's a cult. That's not Christianity. Right, and we got to make sure that we are looking at the scriptures as our basis and not our head knowledge. Right. Most people telling you that this is a mark of a beast, that's coming from their head. That's not coming from the Bible.
Yeah. So I mean, so as Christians, we've heard even from the beginning, with closing down of the churches, or some people closing down the churches, some people that faith over fear. We heard that. faith over fear. So it's like if you are closing down your church, then the pastor don't have no faith. If you put on a mask, you don't have no faith. If you social distance, you don't have no faith. If you do everything that the CDC, the government has recommended, scientists and doctors has recommended, you have no faith. You are fearing something. I mean, what do you say about this faith over fear phenomenon in the black church as well as the white church? It doesn't matter. And in the church, period. What is this faith over fear thing?
So I don't think this is a question of faith. I don't think this is a question of faith. And Eric, this, you're talking to somebody and you know this. My mom had a aneurysm that literally began to unravel from the top of the heart all the way to the kidney, to the point that the doctors told us that she had a few days to live. You're talking about a man of faith. This lady bled for 21 days straight, and they did not understand. And this is not something made up. They did not understand how was she still living. I could remember walking in the room, seeing every day that the vacuum that she had on her chest or in her body in the chest tube, that it would be filled every day from the amount of blood that she was bleeding out. And every day, by faith, my family and I went to that hospital. We laid hands on her and believed God would heal her. And for 21, after the 21 days, she stopped bleeding and she lived for 4 years. 4 years after that. So to me, it's not a question of my faith. I'm a man of knowledge. I'm a man that has studied. I've gone to school. So this is not a question of my faith. And I feel that it is an insult when we attempt to make this a question of faith. This is not a question of faith. I believe God, and I believe the people that God has sent to make a difference on this. So this is not a question of faith. I do believe that the Bible says that God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. I do believe that there is a population that has become debilitated by this, and the fact that they cannot move, they cannot think, they cannot rationalize anything other than COVID. I don't believe that is the will of God. That I don't believe. But I do believe that this is not a faith issue. This is an issue where we've got to use wisdom. And the Bible makes it clear that if we lack wisdom, ask and he will freely give. And I'm confident that if there's anything confusing about this, that all we have to do is ask God. And I'm confident that he will give us clarity in those areas. So I made the decision early on to close my church. I seen this in the field. I did not want to subject my people to this type of thing without there being a remedy. I did not want to run the risk of an outbreak happening in my church and me not being a good steward to be able to tell their families, oh, I believe God. No, that's kind of hard for me to say that when someone loved one passed away because I did not use wise counsel. So for me, it is important for me that we also use wisdom when it comes to this. So I made the decision to close my church, but there was a point that I had to make the decision to open my church. I did not go back and forth asking, well, I'm waiting to this happen and waiting for that to happen. I watched the science. The science proved that if you wore a mask, that it would decrease the chances. And as I've told a lot of my pastor friends, you either open your church in 2020 at the end of 2020 with the mask, or you open in 2021 with the mask, or you open it in 2025 with the mask. But either way, the next time you open your church, it's going to be with a mask. So it's not a matter of faith. It's a matter of using the wisdom and following the science and making sure that we do what we need to do to be protected.
That's good. That's good, Xavier. You know, we lived abroad, and one thing Patsy and I talked about in Japan, I mean, they wear masks all the time. When you catch a cold over there, you better have a mask on. So, and I think we sometimes as Americans, we get spoiled. I would say we are spoiled. about our liberties and about nobody can tell us what to do and this and that. But other countries, it's easier for them to transition into some things like wearing a mask, because they look out for their fellow person. They look out for their fellow neighbor. And I believe wearing the mask, getting the vaccine, it's all about, not as about you, but it's also about that person who can't get the vaccine, because they have some conditions that they can't get it. They may have, have a little kid and that they can't get it. And so the getting the vaccine and being protective as much as you can is looking out for that. And that's what we should be doing as Christians, loving our neighbor as we would love ourselves. And that's what I believe as that's what we should be doing. And so all of these misconceptions, man, I'm telling you, I believe we talked about it offline, is that I believe the pastors, we really have to come together and just talk to our congregation and say, you know what, we're going to trust God because God gave man the science. I mean, if God didn't want man to have the science, he wouldn't have gave it to us. He just, that's how good God is. But he gave us the science. And again, we would take all kind of pills. Some of us, we get a headache, we take an aspirin. Matter of fact, we would eat all type of foods, and we would say, "Well, we don't know what's in the vaccine." I know you heard that one before. We don't know what's in the vaccine, but I guarantee you, 9 times, matter of fact, 10 out of 10, a lot of people don't know what's in their cupboard. They don't know what's the ingredients inside their refrigerator, because I know that when they go to the grocery store, they don't take the time to look at the ingredients, and even in that, they don't even know what the ingredients are.
Right.
So when they say that I don't know what's in the vaccine, I will always say to them, you don't even know what you're eating, because I know for a fact that some of the things that people have eaten and are still eating was grown by dead animals. So I
And
know that
listen,
people are eating. Yeah, I know that. Go ahead.
and they are eating that for years. You're taking
Yeah.
a vaccine, 2 shots, and you're trying to compare your eating habits for 30 years or 34 years, like I am, to 2 shots. Like, come on. Like, we eat stuff that we really shouldn't eat. Some of the vitamins that we take aren't even FDA approved.
I'm telling you.
Some of the stuff, the remedies that we have, like I know my mom used to give us some stuff that was like home remedies, and like that ain't no FDA approved, but it was the best she could do at
Mm-hmm.
that moment. That was all she know.
Mm-hmm.
But they would teach us, we tell people all the time, when you know better, you do better. And I
Mm-hmm.
think this is a no better situation where we are learning more and more and more. I do want to be, very clear that I would never force anyone to
Not mandated. No mandates.
vaccination.
Nope. Right. Right.
Yeah, I'm not in for the mandate, but I do believe that you should be very considerate of yourself and other people. Listen, let me tell you, those once I identified that I had COVID, at that point I was already feeling well. It became a psychological issue where I'm like, who else was I in contact with?
Mm.
Who did I infect with this? And are they going to live? Because I'm like, thank God that when I got it, I didn't pass it to anyone, or at least everybody that I was around, none of them had it, visibly had it. They may have had it and didn't know they had it, but no one else got sick. And I'm just like, that weighed on me, because I'm like, I couldn't be able to live with myself knowing that I infected someone and they didn't make it, or they were critically ill.
Right.
So that was a
Right.
bigger part. Like I remember going to my dad's house and he'd be sitting on the porch and I would go sit in the middle of the yard because I did not want to put him in harm's way.
Right. And I agree, and I'm glad you brought that up, because we're not saying that, if you don't get the shot, you're a terrible person or whatever. You like, I think you mentioned it. You got to talk to God, and you got to study. You got to look at it. My only thing is, don't let social media, don't let misinformation stop you from getting help. That's my only thing. I mean, if
Right.
you go in and you get the facts, not we have a lot of YouTubers that don't even have a degree, don't even know what H2O is. If you say H2O, they say what is that, but they want to tell you about science. And even people that get, I've listened to people with PhDs, and they try to tell you about this. I was listening to a lady, and she was saying this study show, this study show. Well, don't talk to me like I'm dumb, because when you say this study show, I want to see the study. Just don't, because you got
Right.
a PhD, you say, oh, this study showed this. No, no, no. I want to see the study, because you're
Right.
talking like I'm a dumb person, like, oh, I'm going to believe exactly what you say. No, we should all go and look at the facts and study. Even the word of God says, study to show thyself approved. So
Yeah.
don't all the way listen to what the pastor. No, no, no. I'm going to go ahead and see if what you said told me on Sunday aligns up with the scripture. I'm going to study to show myself approved. So I think we should all look at the facts and come to our own conclusion. And if you say no, I'm not getting it, and you got the reasons get it, and I say, yes, I think you should get it, and we come, it's all about a conversation. That's why we have these
Yeah.
conversations. I'm going to eventually get somebody on here who's don't want to get it, and I'm just, hey, what's the reason why? And you give me that conversation of the reason why, because it's all about a conversation. And so I think we should be there. Hey, I got so here's the question here. I don't know if you can answer this, because I don't know if it's a doctor question or it's a personal question, but Angel asked this question. She says, if a unvaccinated person got COVID and their immune system recognized the virus, if the person gets COVID again, will that immune system recognize the virus the second time?
So what's actually happening is, so when I first got COVID, my body built up an immunity, which is called
Mm-hmm.
natural immunity.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you get some type of sickness, you have an immune response. Your immune system is designed to respond. And what it does is it builds an immunity. Now, the interesting thing about this is the immunity, there is no, everybody's immune response is different. So
Mm.
for me, when I tested for COVID and I went to check to see if I had antibodies, I still had antibodies at the 3-month mark, at the 6-month mark, and I think at the 8-month mark. So if I had been exposed to it again within that time period, I probably would not have gotten reinfected, because I had the immunity at that point, the antibodies already in my system fighting actively. Now, fast forward to 1 year later or 9 months later, that immunity could have gone away. But there's no way to know that unless you are constantly checking for antibodies. Now, what determines how long those antibodies stay? It's different for every individual. It can
Right.
depend on the viral load. How much of the virus did you give off? That could be a factor, could determine how long you have a viral load. So that's actually a great question. But so yes, you build a natural immunity initially, but studies have shown that it is not a lifelong immunity. At first, they were initially saying that once you have COVID once, you'll never get it again. But as
Mm.
we're seeing now, that it is possible to be reinfected, although the second time may not, it is not proven, it may not be as harsh as the first time. But I've also heard of some people saying the second time was worse.
Mm.
So that's a study that continues to be had. So for me, knowing that, initially having COVID, I felt it was safe to still get vaccinated, because I never want to feel like the way I felt those 4 days.
Yeah, bro. I remember talking to you. I remember
I
saying,
do
yeah,
not want to feel like that.
man,
I
I
can
tell you.
remember walking my dog, and my dog has a lot of energy. But I went downstairs. I was staying in a high rise at that point. I went downstairs, and I could remember having trouble breathing. I got
Wow.
back upstairs and checked my breathing, and my oxygen saturation was down in the 80s. I'm like, I shouldn't be this low.
Mm.
Normal is like 98, 99 for somebody that's strong and healthy like me. So, yes, that was actually a great question.
Okay. And then she asked another question. She said, is there a possibility of a false COVID positive test result? Is there a possibility of a false COVID positive test result?
Yes. So there are, as with anything, there's no certainty. The specificity of the test, if I said that correctly, of the test is measured by how much of the virus is left in your body, or how much of the virus is in your body. So there have been cases where there have been false positives. So yes, that can happen. And there can also be false negatives. Depends on the actual test. So for me, I thought I got a false positive. So I went and got another test, and it was still positive, and I was still having symptoms. So obviously that test was correct. But there are other people that may have gotten a false positive, but there's really no way to determine that other than getting another test.
All right. So I think that was all the questions that we had tonight. I know it's 6:55, and we're getting ready to just go down. And so I want to give you the last words. I hope that people watching these Tuesday conversations, that they get something out of it, and they, even in the comments, they ask other questions and everything, and we could try to get some more answers. But my thing is that, again, I think we should, again, no mandates, but we should know our bodies and know what we need to fight off. And matter of fact, Angel says thanks. She says thanks. All right. So I'm gonna give you some last words before I sign off. Pastor Xavier, whatever you want to talk about.
So I would just say, we're living in such serious times, and if I had to make a recommendation to you, I would recommend that everyone get vaccinated. Although I can't mandate it, I would recommend that you go and get vaccinated. There's nothing more devastating to hear than an individual that was against COVID-19, feeling like they would never get COVID-19, end up getting COVID-19, and end up being critically ill. We're not even just talking about just dying. There are people that are suffering after the positive. There are long-term autoimmune system effects where people are having long-term mental fog, long-term breathing issues, and it's bad. So I highly, highly, highly recommend that if you can find somewhere, go make an appointment, please go and get vaccinated. I don't want to bury people when they had the opportunity. And there was one gentleman that said something, and I want to go this far and repeat it. He said, if you choose not to get vaccinated, at least do your family a favor and have your affairs in order.
Oh, that's good.
It's at least do your family a favor and have your affairs in order. This is not to wish death on anyone, but if we're going to operate in faith, let us operate all in faith.
Mm-hmm.
Help your family out in case something happens. Because what we're happening is people are not prepared. They have not prepared their families, and they're not having vaccinations. So now we have GoFundMe accounts for people that could have lived. So I leave on this note, go get vaccinated. I don't care if you're young, if you're old, if you're fat, skinny, rich, or poor. This is not something that discriminates, and it is something that we must take and make it very important to all of us.
No. Well, I want to thank you, Xavier, for being my first guest for Tuesday night
Woo!
conversation. Yes, first guest, man. As I want to thank you. We've been talking a long time, and I thank God for you, and I thank you for being so open about your journey, because not everybody will be open. And look, I already know you're a smart person. You got your degree, your masters, and so you're not talking from a person who's not educated or who's not well learned. And you
Right.
also, you get down, you get real. So I thank God for you, and I thank you for being my first guest.
Yes, thank you for the invite. I'm not a doctor, but again, I have taken the opportunity to learn this because I felt that it was very important for me to educate our community and for me to be successful in what I do as an individual. Um, I want to see us live past this pandemic for however long it may last. I want us all to last through it.
All right. Thank you, Xavier. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right. My last final words. Again, I want to thank you for joining me tonight for Tuesday Conversations. This was tonight was talking about COVID-19 and the misconceptions in the Black community. And I pray and I hope that you got something out of this conversation. My parting shot is I agree with Xavier. Is that if you care about yourself or you care about your family, if you don't get the vaccine, make sure you have your life, your family affairs in order. Because again, there's so many people that are dying. Every time I look on the Facebook, social media, I see something: rest in heaven, rest in peace. We miss you, things like that, and it really it can take a psychological effect on you. So, and then you look on there, you see GoFundMe's, you see T-shirts, you see things like that. So, if you're not going to get it, because again, like Xavier said, this is not going to go away no time soon. It's going to be with us for a while, and as it grows and as it mutates and things, of course, there are going to be changes. It's going to be changes every day, every hour, because it is a changing virus. So don't say, well, the government don't know what they're talking about, or these people don't know what they're talking about. Look, this thing changes. So they have to change as well. So please don't always listen to social media and they stuff. You go and study and look at the facts for yourself. I want to thank you for joining me for our first session of Tuesday Conversations. And our next conversation, I don't know when it's going to be, but we're going to make sure that we send it out to everybody. And thank you again for joining me. God bless.